who has given me this. And listen, man, life's hard. Life doesn't cooperate. We get knocked on our ass. We mess things up. We fail. We get frustrated. People scorn us. People betray us. It's like life can be a nasty game. But at the end of the day, it is a finite game. We don't know when it's going to end. And as far as I'm concerned, we have an obligation to wake up every day, despite the challenges and pain that we may be experiencing, and just live life to the fullest. That's it.
Fell early, fell often, but always fell forward. John C. Maxwell. A couple more quotes for you. A man cannot understand the art he is studying if he only looks for the end result without taking the time to delve deeply into the reasoning of the study. Miyamoto Musashi. Two more quotes for you. If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it. Muhammad Ali. Last and certainly not least, the only obstacle that exists are the ones we place in our own mind. Buckle in, folks. My guest on this episode of Passing the Torch is an active duty Green Beret, a Special Forces Warrant Officer who returned to combat after losing his leg in a 2013 insider attack in Afghanistan. Refusing medical retirement, he became the first amputee in military history to complete multiple elite Special Forces qualification courses, including Combat Diver. A Silver Star recipient with 3 Purple Hearts, he speaks on resilience, leadership, and performing at the highest level after adversity. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome a man. If you Google his name, a picture of Denny Jamazzo appears. Former bouncer, fan of Malcolm Gladwell, warrior, leader, speaker, author, and most importantly, a husband and father of 2 young boys. Passing the Torch with Nick Lavery starts now. First and foremost, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining me, Nick.
Martin, I appreciate it, man. It's been a while since we had some time together. I've been looking forward to our conversation, so thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, man. We chatted at Mick, and Tony was on my podcast a couple months ago, and I remember seeing you at the Military Influencer Conference, and it's weird when you see people who are in the spotlight in person, because you're like, is that, in my mind, I'm thinking like, I'm not sure if that's Nick Lavery or not, and it's just, there's no doubt, but obviously I went up and I talked to you, and I don't know if you remember this, because there were so many people trying to talk to you, but and I was telling your wife this, we didn't know each other, and I go up and I instantly let off with a joke, but it was real loud, so I don't know if you heard it, but I said, because I'm 5'8", and I'm about 205, and I said, hey man, are you really intimidated by my size right now? But it's kind of, it's just, and I don't know it wasn't anyone part with you. There was just someone else standing there, and they gave me the weirdest look. But I'm like, it was just funny, man. But
man, I do not recall you dropping that one line on me. Although I will tell you, it's good material. So if I didn't respond, lovingly and laughingly, it's probably because I was a little distracted.
Yeah.
And you know what? You are an intimidating guy. So maybe my answer would have been yes. Like, I'm kind of freaked out right now. I don't know.
That's right. That's right, man. I am an intimidating guy, man. And I'm just loving, we talked for a little bit before we started recording. I'm really enjoying just the conversation. But I want to ask you, man, because I follow you on social media. I see all the great things you're doing, but why is life great right now?
Oh man, I could go on for days with that answer. Why is life great right now? I got blessed with another opportunity to wake up and go at this game, called life. And it's ironic timing, Martin, that you asked that question. A really good friend of mine, his name is Chris Cathers.
My condolences, man. I saw.
Yeah, he passed away yesterday morning. Amazing individual, service member, continued to serve beyond uniform. Started a nonprofit called Brothers Keeper Veterans Foundation that me and my team have done quite a bit of work with over the years. Has been battling cancer and a whole bunch of other health issues now for multiple years. Just an absolute savage, and he passed around his family lovingly as a warrior. And, just so you asked that question, man, and just its recent context for me that I've chosen to leverage as a respect and honor to him and as gratitude towards him who has given me this. And listen, man, life's hard. Life doesn't cooperate. We get knocked on our ass. We mess things up. We fail. We get frustrated. People scorn us. People betray us. It's like life can be a nasty game. But at the end of the day, it is a finite game. We don't know when it's going to end. And as far as I'm concerned, we have an obligation to wake up every day, despite the challenges and pain that we may be experiencing, and just live life to the fullest. That's it.
Yeah, I love it. Do you know Scott McGregor, the Outlier Project?
Oh, yeah, I do know Scott. Yeah, another great dude.
Yeah, so I joined that back in September, and he was on my podcast first, and then and that's what led to me getting into the Outlier Project. But anyway, but he says that every day every day that we wake up as a special occasion, or treat every day like a special occasion. And when he told me back in September, that is just I think about that every single day. Like today, breathing is a special occasion, and just being alive. So I'm just it just
Well
lines up with
said.
yeah. Before we get into like some deeper questions, did you like the opener about Googling your name and a picture of Denny Jamalzo pops up?
You know what? I haven't checked to see if that's still a thing. It was a thing for a minute, which,
Yeah.
when we got within our business organization, we've got now like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different companies and leadership teams and marketing people
Yeah.
and salespeople. It's like, it's a whole thing. And, so they're paying attention to this kind of stuff, SEO and like what kind of buzz
Mhm.
phrase, or what do we need to fix and glitch and drive traffic and funnels and like all this other stuff that I barely understand. And when that first became a thing, as we onboarded Denny onto the team, and he serves in a couple different capacities, but one is as a speaker, one's as an instructor. He's doing some internal operational stuff for us as well. So at some point in the process, he kind of got like blended with me. And sometimes people do say we do look alike. I can kind of see the similarity. I'd say Denny's much better looking than I am, but there's certainly similarities there. And so when this thing popped up, I had like 5 people on my team going like, when people Google Nick, they're getting Denny. We got to fix this. This is like a huge problem. I'm like, I think it's kind of hilarious. and
Lean
awesome.
into
Like,
it.
I'm totally good with it, man. So yeah, it's all good.
You guys should do something to where, like, if you have a workout program or something, show Denny as the before picture, and then you as the after. Like, hey, you'll grow physically and like vertically.
There we go. I like what you're thinking.
Man, so I read your book, Objective Secure, and it's so good.
Thank you.
And I have also listened and watched you on multiple podcasts. So even this, the 6-hour one with Jocko or 5-hour one with Sean Ryan and you name it. So if there's a podcast that you've done, we'll say in the past 3 or 4 years, maybe even going back, I've been prepping for you for a long time.
Cool.
And so I've, like, no kidding, listened to probably like 20 hours of your content. But there's something that I came across that when I just reading your book and all the podcasts that really I wanted to ask you, why is humility a preferred weapon of choice?
Oof. Great question. Love where your head's at. And I can answer this a variety of different ways, but I do want to just give you some credit for bringing that up. And especially, when it comes to me, and a lot of this is, kind of self-created. There's a lot of this is focused on, intensity and work ethic and this like savagery, with the blue war paint, like, in Braveheart. And It's like when people see me, a lot of that goes into that kind of like hyper aggressive killer instinct, which is certainly a component. I would say it's a requirement depending on what you're trying to do. You got to have that competitive nature and that drive and that grit and that toughness to just like go and like get your ass kicked and keep going. But one of the things that comes across almost as surprising to some, whether that's on social media or if I'm working with a client or if I'm doing a keynote or like whatever, is some of these like softer skills. That's how I frame it. These softer skills of human performance and excellence. And it's things like humility. It's things like gratitude. It's things like empathy and compassion and perspective. Like those are oftentimes the differentiators. And when we work with like pro athletes, for example, or like tier 1 military units or tier 1 law enforcement units, these like very similar type A hyper aggressive animals that are going into that operational environment looking to like crush the game, we start dropping in some of these nuggets, whether it's myself or one of my other instructors or what we're doing. And it's almost, you catch people like they're confused. Like, why are you talking to me about humility? Like, let's talk about like sets and reps and grams of protein. I'm like, well, yeah, there's a place for that stuff for sure. But these are oftentimes the differentiators, especially when you get to those higher levels of human performance, because everybody's really good. Everyone is fast. Everyone is strong. Everyone's got a higher level of mental toughness. It's like when you can start to weaponize things like humility and integrity and compassion, like that's going to separate you from an already outlier type group. And so humility, in my opinion, is one of those superpowers of human performance, whether you're talking about you as an individual or you as a leader or you as a teammate. It's the ability to recognize that there's always someone out there better than you at something, to remain a student of the game, regardless of how skilled you get, to remain gracious for what you have, to remain respectful, to have a high degree of honesty, to have a high degree of self-awareness. These are all like sub-component or ingredients that could fall underneath that humility bubble. And, you know, one of the common kind of, I'd say, misrepresentations is that like your ego is your enemy. And oftentimes people hear humility and they think that it's, well, don't let your ego get in the way. And there's a degree of truth to that, but the ego inherently isn't evil. Like we all have an ego. Like the definition of ego is just one's view of oneself. Like that's it. That's your ego. Granted, making egotistical decisions is usually something that doesn't work for your best interest or that of the team. And that's where humility can come into play and be that superpower. And, you know, one of the greater challenges, and I'll stop here, is as you continue to kind of level up and get better and earn more skill and have more credibility and get the next title and have more experience, humility can be more and more difficult to maintain because you're so good at what you do. And I like to use the example of Phil Jackson, who's arguably one of the greatest head basketball coaches of all time. He will tell you that his two most coachable players ever, in being coachable, being willing to listen is a component of humility. His two most coachable players ever was Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, arguably the two greatest players that like ever live. And some hear that and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like MJ just needs to go be him. He doesn't need to listen to anybody. But in order to continue to get better, if you have this, I'm never satisfied. It doesn't matter how many titles I get, how many points I score. Like I am continuously going to drive to be better. You have to have a degree of humility in order to do that. You can't have one without the other. And so for high performers that want to hit that next level, or someone that's just kind of looking to level up and improve their life, humility, in my opinion, non-negotiable.
Do you feel like the future, if like special forces units or even elite people in elite organizations, if they want to level up, is there room? How much more room is there for empathy and humility? And is that what's needed to really take people to, I guess, evolve?
I'd say there's no ceiling on it. It's going to continue to grow and can continue to advance, if only for two obvious reasons. One is we are in a constant state of change. You and I have changed since we began this conversation. You know, so one of the expressions I use is change is inevitable, progress is optional, but we are in a never-ending cycle of change. Whether that's us as individuals or those of us that are operating on a team, that team is changing constantly because the individuals are in a constant state of change and the team itself is in a constant state of change. So we're in this never-ending loop of a different new operating environment, a different new version of me, a different and new version of Martin, and then a different and new version of us all trying to figure this thing out collectively. So it doesn't really, in my opinion, get to a point where you like check the block really on any of this. Certainly not humility. You are a never ending student of the game and you just continue to progress and look and strive for perfection while knowing that that never exists. Like you mentioned Miyamoto Musashi, which is I consider him a mentor of mine, who's a samurai warrior in the 16th century. And, you know, he states that the differentiator between the masters and the average is masters recognize that the pursuit of mastery is indefinite. That's the primary difference between the greats and the average. The greats are willing to pursue something that they know they will never reach, yet they do it anyway. That is what mastery is. It's a never-ending loop of striving towards something that you will never achieve. Humility, human performance, it would all, in my opinion, fall under that same category. So no, there's no cap on it. There's no ceiling on it. It's a never-ending evolution of learning, getting it wrong, adjusting, being adaptable, and then getting back into the game.
Yeah, I chose that quote on specifically, and I don't recall if I read it in your book or just came across it in some of the other stuff I've listened to. So all the quotes that I said were either said by you or mentioned in a book that people that and I also had one, I didn't say it, but by Friedrich Nietzsche or Nietzsche. I couldn't remember how to say the last name, but yeah, I had quite a few lined up. So all that you said kind of just makes me think about your book because the high stakes environments that you operate in, the margin for error is very, very small. You know, when applying your system in normal life context, whether it's business, personal development, recovery from loss, what aspect of objective secure do people usually overlook because they assume it's strictly for elite performance?
Oof. That's a good question, man. What jumps out to me first, and it's maybe it's an ironic answer because you frame the question as something that people might overlook because they make the inaccurate assumption that that is solely for like special operators or like military personnel. And I would say that that is true in this with this response I'm about to provide, but also at the same time, it's something that most people recognize is a non-negotiable regardless of what they do or what they're pursuing, and that's discipline. And, you know, so discipline, there's a very strong, I could say, like military kind of feel that comes, we stand in boxes and we hut, and we salute and we do all this like, you know, army military stuff. So I get it. But also when I just kind of share or remind people what discipline means, what it is, 99% are going to go, yeah, like I kind of know that. So it's not a lack of understanding. It's not ignorance. It's not being uninformed. It's just you're unwilling to actually do it. And there's a huge gap between like getting it and doing it. And that bridge oftentimes is just too far for most. And those that I would suggest and argue continue to move forward and kind of level up and pursue great things and do great things are the ones that are just willing to do that more often than the rest. So like you could just define discipline a variety of different ways. The most simplest that I know of is one's ability to resist temptation. That's straight out of the dictionary. Like resisting temptation is discipline. Another way I like to describe it is, are you willing to exchange what you want now for what you want most? Are you willing to make that trade? And it's going to come with some costs. Like it's going to sting at least a little bit. And if you are willing to make that exchange, part of that exchange is the word sacrifice. You're going to have to give something up, whether that's time, a warm, cozy bed, a night out with your friends, a slice of pizza, a donut. Like you have the ability to choose something that's right in front of you right now that you want. Are you willing to give that up and then replace that with something more in line with what you really want most, whether that's to write a book, start a business, play football on Sundays, become a Green Beret, like whatever the thing is, are you willing to make those exchanges? And we are given that opportunity. We are at that crossroads countless times every single day, countless times. You know, so I think that this is a concept that most people understand. It's just so easy to justify, rationalize, you know, you choose your term as to why someone would succumb to that temptation in real time and be able to convince themselves that, no, you know, I've earned it, I deserve it, and da-da-da. And like all that may be true. But the hard reality is, in my opinion, is those that choose the hard right over the easy wrong more often than not and can do that with consistency, like that's who wins. That's who achieves victory.
Hey everyone, I want to take a quick break from today's episode to talk about the show's sponsor. Are you retiring or separating from the military soon? Looking for an alternative to the Veterans Group Life Insurance, also known as the VGLI? Reach out to Dan Guzman Life Solutions. Dan is a 27-year United States Air Force veteran and retired command chief. After a lifetime of service, Dan's mission is simple: protect yours. As an independent life insurance producer licensed across multiple states, Dan specializes in helping military families find smart, affordable, term life alternatives to VGLI and insurance policies that fit your life and budget. If you want coverage that makes sense, reach out today at danguzmanlifesolutions.com. The link for that will be in the show notes. Now back to the episode. Yeah, and I think we've all probably seen like the same like social media memes, but like there's two people, and like the person who takes the easy path like ends up like has a hard life. The person who takes the hard path at first ends up having an easy life. You know, it's just so hard path at first, easy life later on. You know, easy choices early on lead to a hard life later on. So it's just it's
you know,
tough.
And I've seen that, man, and I get the spirit of that. You know, I'd probably push back against that a little bit, man, because I think it's all hard. Life is hard. You know what I'm saying? Getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning and going for a run, like that's hard, right? Meal prepping and eating boiled chicken and broccoli, like that's hard. Going to the gym and lifting heavy weights is hard. Staying in and reading a nonfiction book versus going out and having beers with your friends on a Saturday, like that's hard. Those things are all hard to do. You know what else is hard? Is being smoked by walking up a flight of stairs. That's hard. Being unable to keep up with your kids because you're that out of shape. That's hard. Getting out of the shower and looking at your body in the mirror and being disgusted with what you see, that's also hard. So it's all hard, okay? Life is hard. What I'm suggesting is that we just choose your hard. Be proactive, be deliberate. You choose your hard because it's going to be hard no matter what.
Man, I love that. That is so good, man. So what's your relationship with failure? Because you talk about that in page 30 of your book and having a negative relationship. But yeah, what's your current relationship with failure?
To put it bluntly, it's an opportunity. That's it. I think that one like reframe of the same set of circumstances is an absolute game changer. Of course, much easier said than done. You know, when you strive to do something and you strive for a specific outcome, and let's just use the word winning to describe whatever that is, and you come up short, by definition, you failed. This is what I intended to do. I did not do that. Okay. Call it a loss, call it a failure, call it whatever you want. That's a hard thing to get over. And our ego, our sense of pride, our emotional well-being, which is all correlated to our survival, which is why it's so powerful and it's so convincing, is going to give us all of the reasons that it wasn't our fault, it wasn't the right time, choose another option, go, you gave it a shot, call it a day, move on to something more safe, get back in the comfort zone. Like that comes in waves immediately following the failure, and then oftentimes can just keep going for a really long time. And then we end up doing whatever we decide to do. I think so when you have weaponized the ability to see failure as an opportunity, to extract knowledge, to extract wisdom, to ram that wisdom back into a system, maybe make an adjustment or two, and then continue to go again and again and again, you've created an unstoppable force. Because not only do I have the resilience to get back up after getting knocked down, which is a requirement, but I'm going to be faster, stronger, smarter, more driven, more capable, specifically because of the failure. I would have been incapable of gaining this next level of knowledge had I not got it wrong. Most of the knowledge we have right now in our brains, Martin, comes as a result of us getting things wrong. Like when you learned how to walk, whether you were 18 months or 2.5, whatever, that process was the exact same for you as it was for me. You got up, you fell over. You got up, you fell over. You used the couch, you took a couple steps, you fell over. Boom, 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 over and over and over and over and over again. And then eventually you got up and you scampered your little ass across the living room. Like I learned that same lesson twice, and it proved to be equally true both times. That's where most of the wisdom is. And so I think when we can begin to see it as an opportunity to get better, then you almost have a different problem where you are stalking failure on purpose. You're getting almost too aggressive into the realm of reckless because you're so eager for the knowledge, because you're so desperate and driven to be better that you can get a little reckless. So, you know, there is a spectrum. You know, I have an expression I use, it's in the book, where it goes, there is the line between determination and madness. And that may be a very fine line. I'm not sure if there is a line. It's more of like on a spectrum, but there is a difference between being obsessed and driven towards something and being reckless. And one's pursuit of failure can very easily get into that realm of reckless. But I just think, you know, you give yourself some grace, you play with that dial, it's dials, not switches, and you find yourself in a place where, oh, no, I'm going at this to win. I'm not going at this to lose. I'm going at this to win. It's got to be an authentic failure, meaning I am going to win. Ooh, I didn't. That sucks. That hurts. That pain is an indicator of an opportunity. You drive in, extract knowledge, weaponize it, get up, keep going.
So what do you think people struggle with more, patience or discipline?
I would, I'm going to say, I'll say discipline, because I think when it comes to patience, and I did talk about this in the book a little bit, is people confuse or make synonyms out of patience and procrastination. And those are two very different things. You know, patience is the recognition that, you know, good things take time. Rome wasn't built in a day. Like this is going to take a while. If I want to start a successful business that I can live off of comfortably, like that's a 10-year vision, like easily, right? So it's going to take a while. Patience is just a recognition that that's going to take time, and you can only do so much to shorten that time horizon. But it's not going to happen at all if I'm not getting after it aggressively every single day. Procrastination is, oh, this is going to take a long time. I'll get started tomorrow. I'll get started next week. I'll get started on Monday, right? Everyone's fitness journey begins on a Monday. I'll start January 1st, new year, new me. That's procrastination, is kicking that can down the road. But I think people oftentimes they're procrastinating and they're justifying it to themselves by saying that they're being patient, when those are two different things. So to answer the question, because it's so easy, in my opinion, to misinterpret what patience is, that's an easier thing for people to do. Then discipline, in my opinion, will become the greater challenge. Is just the willingness to do what needs to be done, particularly when you don't feel like doing it. Doing what needs to be done when it is inconvenient to do it. Being willing to delay gratification. And in today's world, and as technology continues to advance, that's getting more and more difficult to do because things are getting so fast and so automated. It's like, oh, I want a thing, click a button, shows up at my door an hour later, which still blows my mind that that's even possible. So immediate gratification is becoming more and more normalized, meaning that delayed gratification is becoming more and more scarce. It's becoming more and more rare. And by definition, when things are scarce, when things are rare, typically that drives up the value of the thing. There's a reason why diamonds are worth what they're worth versus pebbles. There's just less of them. So particularly for the young people that are paying attention, as immediate gratification is becoming more and more standardized and more normalized, it requires less and less of you to be different and delaying gratification. Should you be willing to do that and adopt disciplined behavior as part of your operating system, dude, you will steamroll everyone else around you because it's becoming more and more rare, hence more and more valuable, hence more and more correlated to success.
Man, I came here for a podcast, but I feel like now I have the honor of getting a motivational pep talk. Man, I feel ready to go. Man, I'm loving this.
There we go, a 2 for 1. I love when that happens.
So I want to transition to just more specific topics about you. Something else I've heard you say that has really stuck with me in a positive way is why are humans more important than hardware?
It's one of our, we call that one of our SOF truths. So SOF is an acronym for Special Operation Forces. That's where that comes from. And, I do stand by that. I'm not anti-technology. I'm not anti-hardware. I leverage these tools, every single day, but I do stand by the human is the asset. Irrelevant to whatever widget or thing or tool I put in your hands or you put in your own hands, those tools, that hardware is an extension of you. That's it. And as a combatives guy, I taught as a combatives instructor for years. I grew up doing combat sports, boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, MMA. One of the expressions that we have in the military combatives world is you are the weapon. You're the weapon. My job is to train you as the weapon. Whatever thing I put in your hand, whether that's a knife, a baseball bat, a pistol, a sniper rifle, a mortar system, all that does is extend the range of your lethality, the range, the distance, and perhaps the effectiveness of your lethality. But you are the weapon. And I think that philosophy stands true today, even as we advance into the realm of hardware and software and technology, and it's getting crazy. Until we hand over the keys to some of these systems, like Terminator 2 style, right? Until we go full Skynet, which let's all hope and pray that doesn't happen, at least not in my lifetime or my children's lifetime.
Yeah.
Until we hit that precipice where we're just going to hand over the keys to an algorithm and like that humans totally removed from the equation, I stand by that principle. And what we do within my organization, and again, there's a few operational entities, is we live by that motto. Our job is to invest in the development of human capital, and then whatever additional tools or assets or widgets or functionality that an organization or an individual wants to slap on that person is great. We invest in the human because we believe it's more important than the hardware.
Yeah, love it. I want to take it back a little bit to your childhood, where I've heard you have shared that you were bullied, which is kind of crazy to me, but you were bullied as a kid. How did those early experiences shape your grit and identity?
Yeah, it's a great question. The short answer is they were at I'd say the core of what has shaped my identity and maybe more so my ability. And I love talking about this because kind of like how you just kind of framed it is like surprising. People go on, my Instagram and they see this like 6'6", like tatted up, like Green Beret, whatever image comes to their mind. And this misconception that I've kind of always been like this way. And it's so inaccurate. And so I love the opportunity to kind of share the truth. And that is what you just framed. As a kid growing up, I was a new kid in school, every year, all the way up until I got into college. So my family moved around a lot. My family struggled financially, and two great, amazing parents that really busted their ass, had me very, very young, had my youngest sister also very young. So we're basically two kids, my parents, trying to figure out how to keep a roof over our heads and keep food in our bellies. And they did that. And they lived in the grind for about 20 years to do so. But as a result of that, I was a new kid in school, and I was picked on. I was bullied. I struggled socially. If by some chance I was able to make a friend, I was on to the next location the next year. And that was just the cycle. And that was hard, and of course, as a young person growing up, we're social creatures. Like, you want to be accepted into a social group. And I'd never really had that. And so I can look back now with an enormous amount of gratitude, because the process of building resilience, whether that's physical or mental, is the same process of conditioning. That's all it is. It's exposure to discomfort, and then you recover from that discomfort, and then you go again and again and again and again. Whether you're getting on an assault bike and you're going at 1,000 miles an hour and you just like destroy your cardiovascular endurance system, and then you recover from that, and then you do it again and again, and soon, eventually you can go faster, you can go longer, blah, blah, blah. That is conditioning. Resilience is built the exact same way. And so I was getting just constant reps at resilience out into the world, getting my ass kicked, sometimes literally and physically, certainly emotionally, coming back into a safe environment, that being my home, wherever that was. I was provided some guidance. I was provided some recommendations. I was provided a whole bunch of love. And then I was sent right back out the next day. And then that was the loop for the first, 15, 20 years of my life. And so, I look back on that now, and I'm like, I can say with a degree of certainty that I'm nowhere near the resilient individual I am now, had I not had all that training that I got for me starting at 4 years old.
So were there like any specific pivotal moments in your childhood, like something that's just etched in your brain?
There's a few. One comes to mind, and as now I'm a dad of two young boys, this particular memory is probably more to the surface of my memory bank, because it's more relevant to where I am today in life. But I was around maybe the age of my oldest, who's 8, he's going on 9. I was like somewhere in that age category, maybe 3rd, 4th grade. And I came home, I was beat up physically. And this happened to be from a dude who was like 3 years older than me, who lived in our neighborhood. And I walked in the house, and I was like clearly like lumped up. And my father was like, "What happened? Who did this, whatever." And I was like, "It was this kid, blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Cool." And he like grabbed me, like walked out the door, walked down the street, knocked on the dude's door. And then like things got pretty aggressive in this person's doorway. It came from the dad and the mom of the kid were like, "No, he didn't do this." And things didn't get physical. Things didn't like escalate to like any kind of point of that. But it was a reminder of how my father handled that particular situation, where he's like, we're going to attack this problem like head on right now. And I was just petrified, like, oh my gosh, what's about to happen? I don't even know. And so that sticks out to me now. And as I am wondering, should I find myself in a similar situation with one of my boys anytime soon? Will I choose to handle it the same way my father did? Probably. Hopefully with enough emotional control as he did, because he didn't just like haul off and smack somebody. I'd like to think I'd do the same thing. But yeah, that's a memory that sticks out in my mind as well.
No, thanks for sharing that. That's a good story. I like that. And it's just hard to imagine you getting picked on. But I want to have one more question, and I want to get into some real fun, light, miscellaneous questions. But one thing I've learned about you is it seems like you're an avid reader, and I read as well. And there's been a couple of the same books that we've read. But what have you learned from reading Robert Cialdini, Malcolm Gladwell, and many others regarding social and psychological spheres?
Robert Cialdini is Cialdini. I always mess up the pronunciation.
I totally meant to look it up earlier, and I think
it's
spaced, and I was like, let me just say it real fast, and hopefully no one notices.
Yeah, I mean, one of his greatest.
Worcestershire sauce.
A lot of his work is actually embedded into some of the programs and some of the training that we go through as Green Berets, because we operate quite heavily in what we call like the human domain, And so real quick, one of the key differentiators between Green Berets and really all of the rest of special operations is we are in the relationship business. Green Berets are considered force multipliers. Like, it would be incredibly unlikely for a group of Green Berets to go somewhere and solve a problem just themselves. We are built to work with and through indigenous personnel or other groups of people. Now, other special operations units also will conduct like bilateral operations, but Green Berets are purposely built to be able to do that. And so I just frame that because we are in the relationship business. Our ability to foster, maintain, and influence and guide a relationship into a particular direction is what determines if we are successful or if we fail. And so a lot of this institutional knowledge as it pertains to influence and leadership and rapport building and effective communication is built within our professional obligation, in addition to the cool guy, action movie, gunfighting, jumping out of planes kind of shit that we also do. So when it comes to influence in the works of Maxwell and Cialdini, and there's plenty of others, I'll summarize this maybe as bluntly as I can for those that are operating on a team, those that choose to consider themselves a leader and act as such, either in their homes or in their professional environment, is the most powerful means of influence is by virtue of implementation. Period. I'll stop. And a way to summarize that more bumper stick alike is, actions speak louder than words, which I think is something we can all probably get behind. If I'm at the dinner table, this actually just happened last night. Literally, we're having dinner. Tony, my wife, made an amazing meal that had included broccoli. I'm not a huge fan of broccoli, although the way she makes it is epic. And so I have some options here. I got 2 young boys. I could take my broccoli, throw it in the garbage can, and then tell them to eat their broccoli because it's important. Would they do that? Maybe, maybe not. If they did, it would likely be based mostly on fear of a potential consequence, or just, I'm going to do what my dad says because of the position I have over them. I don't want to lose my tablet, whatever. I'm going to do the thing begrudgingly, but I might do it. That is not the ideal way to influence someone to do something that's in their interest or the interest of the team. The way for me to handle that, which is the way I did last night, is I eat the broccoli, whether I enjoy it or not, it's irrelevant. And by virtue of setting that example, i.e. implementation, then they're more likely to follow suit. And so in today's world with, marketing and sales and the power of persuasion, which is more specific to communication, the ability to influence someone by virtue of communication, I would just start at the core of the most powerful means to influence another is by virtue of you doing it yourself, you living those virtues yourself, and that cascade effect happens on the people within your orbit.
Man, that's fantastic. I can definitely relate to the dinner story. I have an 8-year-old son as well, so I think that's the biggest fight that I face the hardest fight every single day is trying to get him to eat responsibly.
It's a challenge, for sure.
I want to transition to as we're winding down, some light miscellaneous questions. There's no rhyme or reason, just some fun questions.
Let's do it.
Do you still have a picture of Jocko taped to the inside of your food cabinet?
No, I don't. Right now, the inside of my food cabinet is my training program. There's one of my quotes that I use is on there right now, which is, "This is the cost of admission." There isn't any photographs. That's nothing against Jocko. Jocko's my boy. He's still a mentor of mine. He's actually a colleague. We partner on a lot of things together over at Echelon Front, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's just when it comes to these visual reminders, as I call in my book, mementos, I swap them out every now and then. So there's a chance Jocko may come back around and end up, a picture of him is taped to my mirror above the sink in my bathroom.
Yeah.
But right now, no, it's not there.
So I've actually met him in person, and I've had people ask me, like, what's he like? And like, he's not as tall as I thought he was, but like, he's wider than people. He's wide. He's built. I feel like Jocko was born of the earth. Like, he was never actually a kid. He just spawned from the earth at age 25, and he was just this savage, ready to go, like this train. He looks like a born assassin. If you watch the Born Identity movies, it's like he's one of those guys that'd be driving around a moped, and all of a sudden he gets a text on a phone or whatever, and he's got to go to his mission. That's what he looks like to me.
He would be a great person to put into that dynamic. In fact, he was, as he was, on the SEAL teams. I'll tell you real quick, man, about one of my favorite things to share about Jocko is I've had a chance to get to know him professionally and personally now over the last, 5 or so years, is he is the guy that you believe and want him to be as you see him 2-dimensionally on a podcast, on social media, on a whatever. He really is that guy in real life. And, that's not always the case. There's the expression like never meet your heroes because like your depiction of them, you could very easily be let down by who they are in reality. Jocko is Jocko. I will say, and he won't get too angry about this, I don't think, is he's very much a team guy. So when he's like, he doesn't swear. He doesn't curse. He has very deliberate control over his language. If it's just the two of us, on the jiu-jitsu mat, like he and I will talk like team guys, but like he is who he is through and through. He's a man who practices what he preaches. He presents those values and those operating systems. And then that's literally who he is and how he does life.
No, I love hearing that. So, and there's a black moleskin notebook that I have. I've had it for 12 years now. And whenever I read a book, I take notes from that book. And I have notes from your book in there as well. And like I'll handwrite notes in cursive. But when I met him in person, he actually signed that part of my moleskin notebook. And I've read 3 of his books, but it was pretty cool.
Perfect.
All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to do this in 2 parts. I want to do a fun thing. I call it the name game. The first part is going to, I'm stealing an idea from The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. He did something with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck to where they, in sequence, they just read off Massachusetts towns.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm going to hold up. I wrote down 4 towns, and you should check out that skit. I was going to send it to Tony, and I was like, nah, I want to surprise Nick because I was, anyway, but it'd be fun to watch. So, and they all dressed up as like Boston people, which is made it even more funny.
Red Sox hat and carrying a cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee or something. Yeah. Perfect.
So I'm just going to hold up. I wrote down 4 towns, and I just want to hear you say them.
All right, let's do it. Arlington. Worcester. That's a good one. That's a good one because the pronunciation that what I just said is like nowhere near how you probably should read it, but that's how you say it. Worcester. Cambridge? That's not Cambridge. Really, there's not like a huge accent in that one. Is that, I mean, how would you say that?
Cambridge?
Would you say Cambridge?
Yeah, right. Cambridge.
Yeah. It's Cambridge.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's the
Harvard. There you go. That's a good one. That was actually going to be another recommendation to throw up there is Harvard. Yeah.
One last name, and I'm going to spell it for you. I just hope you can say it. I just want to hear you say it. Nomar.
Nomar. As in like the player? Like Nomar Garcia Parra? Yeah. Nomar.
Yeah, I forgot to write it down, but I was like, because that was one of my favorite sketches on SNL was when Jimmy Fallon and Rachel Dratch, they played a high school Boston couple, and he'd always be like, "Nomar," One of my closest friends is from Worcester, and when Denny came on my show, I messaged my friend Justin Lotzbaum. I said, "Hey, this guy, Denny Jamals is going to be on my show. He's from," and Justin calls it Wotown. And I was like, Denny's from lived in, Worcester for a little bit. And he gave me something specific to ask. I forgot what it was, but what is like Denny's order at some restaurant that only people from that area would know. And it was, and Denny knew exactly what I was talking about. So that kind of made it cool.
There you go.
All right. The next part of the name game is I'm going to say some names. So just provide a word or a sentence, hopefully good stuff that comes to mind when you hear these names. The first one is physical therapist Kelly.
Oof. An angel. Kelly passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know that.
No, it's all good. Kelly passed away in 2024 while giving birth to what would have been her second child. And so the angel fits. Not solely as a result of her having, moved on and is awaiting our link up point up in heaven, but also just during my experience with her, what she did for me. And I talk about it in the book, and I can say this still lovingly. She's
that's where I got
like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because she's this very sweet, petite, blonde, very kind, warm, like angel. But then there's like a demon in her as well. When she would go to work on me, she was just like relentless and ruthless and would like push me to my limits, which I needed, so Kelly was there for me amongst the many that I had kind of in my ecosystem on my team when I needed the most support. And she was one of them. And she will forever remain, a huge impact and source of motivation and inspiration for me moving forward in life.
Did you ever confirm if she ever trained with Cobra Kai?
I don't know if she did, but she would fit right in there.
Yeah, you always I remember that from the book, and I thought that was I
Yeah.
love you wrote you said a lot of amazing things about her, and at different parts of the book. It wasn't just like in one section or one paragraph. It felt like there was different references, or so that's what I was like, man, I want to bring her name up.
I'm glad you did. Thank you for bringing that up.
I have 3 more names for you. The next one is Trey Pace.
Trey Pace. I was just talking with him a couple days ago. Real quick, I think you said one word answer.
You can say a sentence.
Savage would probably be the one word. Amazing American. He's a force to be reckoned with. I mean, you want to talk about a dangerous individual. I think he's now a 3rd degree black belt, jiu-jitsu, MMA. He's all full blown high level Muay Thai. Runs his own jiu-jitsu and MMA gym out in North Carolina. So to see where he's come now as this full grown husband, father, animal, business owner, entrepreneur, it's just been such a blessing for me to be alongside that ride for him. When I first met Trey Pace, he was this young, like E4, blue belt jiu-jitsu kid who was support guy, non-Green Beret, trying to get a job in a position that used to only be for Green Berets. And so we like broke the mold when I was working on the combatives committee, and by bringing in a non-Green Beret to be a combatives instructor for Green Berets. So it was a different approach that we took. And he was this young, nervous, scared kid, understandably so. But I began learning from Trey, immediately, even though he's like 8 years younger than me and, it's not the same rank and like whatever stuff. I started learning from him from day one. He pushed me, he supported me, he challenged me as he does today. So just an amazing human being.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. Mentorship's a 2-way street, right? We think we always have to be older or outrank the person, but you can be mentored, learn a lot from people younger and at a different rank. So that's
well said. Very true.
Perfect. 2 more names. The first of which is I'm going to say is it Lieutenant General Cleveland? Did I get that right? Or is
Lieutenant General?
Yeah, Lieutenant General. Okay, because I put LTG and I know it's Lieutenant General, but I was like, did I meant to put like a different rank? But yeah, LTG Cleveland.
Yeah, so Charles Cleveland, General Cleveland, incredibly impactful individual. So one of the words that comes to mind is, or I'd say, authentic leader, cares fiercely about those within his formation. General Cleveland changed the trajectory, I think, of my entire life, and he showed up into my hospital room when I was still really early on in my recovery. And he shared kind of his vision as the USASOC commander for the next 10-year future of Army Special Operations. And that totally changed my approach to how I would go back to getting back to the teams, because it placed an emphasis on some of these like softer components and kind of getting to our roots of how Green Berets and ODAs are kind of built to operate, that being with and through. Because for about a decade, we had been like at the front of the fight, like kicking down doors and just like going in and doing all the direct action counterterrorism stuff. And he's like, you know what? I think we kind of need to like pivot a little bit back to operating in a way in which we were built to operate. And that opens up a whole Pandora's box of skills that are required to do that. And so by virtue of that probably 7-minute interaction that he invested in me, opened up my peripherals quite a bit to be like, whoa, like I can invest myself here, and here. And it changed my mission, because my goal was to get back to being the same level of operator that I was as a 2-legged guy, capable of doing the same things I was capable of doing. And that wasn't the approach. The goal is to get back to being the same level of asset. How you provide value to that team probably needs to be different, because I will never be as physically dominant as I was with 2 legs. That was a hard pill to swallow, but General Cleveland helped me choke that down, but then also gave me different options for me to make up the difference with what I would lose physically. That's the route I took. It ended up working, and I give really him most of the credit for instilling that glide path into my mind.
Dude, that's awesome. Shout out to General Cleveland. That's amazing to hear.
Stud.
Yeah, and we don't hear stories really about generals like that, right? Like we hear stories of people taking care of people or leaders, but never at the flag officer level. So that's refreshing to hear. Not that they don't take care of their people; it just doesn't get talked about as much, right? So they need flowers too. They need flowers too. The last name, and certainly not least, is from page 60 of your book, Jimmy Rooney.
Jimmy 2 times, we called him.
Jimmy 2 times. Yeah, that's right.
He got that nickname. Typically in SF, Special Forces, the team sergeant job which is really like the boss of the team, the senior enlisted guy on the team who really runs the boys. That's usually you get that job one time. Usually it's around 24 months. If you're lucky, you may get an extra year out of it. So it's a very short-lived, and then you're on to the next, and you're doing like whatever you're doing, getting ready to become a sergeant major and blah, blah, blah. Jimmy got 2 cracks at team sergeant. He did the team sergeant thing. Then he came over and ran our advanced urban combat committee, which is really where I met him more personally as I was working as a combative instructor, because that's all housed under the same company of advanced skills. And then he got invited to go back to a team to take the team sergeant job again. And this time he was going back to the team that I had just left. And so the stars were really aligning, man. You want to talk about the universe and God, talking to me, whether I recognized it for what it was back then. I certainly do now. Jimmy 2 times was dropped into my life very deliberately and purposefully. And man, I could go on forever about that guy. I still learn from him today. He is and was just a phenomenal leader, a guy that cares about the people within his charge more than he does himself, oftentimes to his own detriment, which is kind of an unintended consequence of being that kind of selfless servant to others, is you kind of place yourself on the back burner. And oftentimes that comes with some cost you're going to pay downstream, which he has, and he knows that. But just the guy's all hot, but also he's all business. And as much as he loved me, and as much as he cared for me, and as much as he respected what I was trying to pursue, doing something no one's ever done before, a one-legged guy going back onto an ODA, his ODA, as much as he respected that and wanted to support that, he made it very clear to me that there was no room for a liability on his team. And so, hey, brother, like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to push you. I'm here to pick you up when you get knocked down. I would love to see you make this vision into a reality. But let's be very clear. You will meet the standard of this team, regardless of how many limbs you have. And if you come an ounce short of that, you will no longer be here. Do you understand? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's like, all right, man, I love you. Like, what can I do to help you? That kind of dichotomy and dynamic is rare in people, especially in today's world, that can be equally loving and compassionate and empathetic and caring about another individual, and concurrently being that blunt, direct, no, straight to the point. That's a dying breed, I would argue, in today's society. Jimmy had that then. He has that now. I love him to death. He's one of the greatest people I've ever met.
Yeah, Jimmy 2 times with tough love, but it's for accountability and because he loves. I love hearing. That's a great story too, man. Last couple questions, just wrapping up. If there was a giant billboard with your picture on it for the world to see, where would you want that billboard to be, and what would you want that billboard message to say?
If there was a giant billboard of me, where would I want it to be? That's a tough question, man. If I were to think like strategically, Tony and I were just in New York over this past weekend. We actually stayed in Times Square.
Oh, nice.
On some business. That comes to mind just based on like the visibility. If you're going to put up a billboard, it's for marketing purposes. Like, you want as much visibility as possible in order to enhance the impact and the effect. The problem I have with that is my humility, my modesty is like, I don't really, that would make me uncomfortable a little bit. So the business side of my brain and like the personal side of my brain are like kind of in conflict. I got this cognitive dissonance going on right now, Martin, as you asked, which is a great indicator of a good question. Where I land on this, Walter Reed comes to mind, as a place for service members that are struggling. Yeah. Hey, man, I've literally been where you are right now. I get it. It's hard. There is a way that you can turn whatever you want into a reality. That comes to mind. My son's school comes to mind, or any like gathering where there's like a lot of young people, just more impressionable minds. Even if you could just plant a seed into one of them, that might grow into something worthwhile, like the cascading and second and third order effects of that gets really interesting to me real fast. So I can't, a specific location's tough, but I would say service members, civil servants that may be struggling, I would like to have a message planted there, and then also maybe in the realm of some young impressionable minds. And, I think that the overall mission would be, or the message would be, it's going to be hard. It's going to be scary. Those are both indicators that what you're trying to do is worthwhile, and it is possible. The only question is, how far are you willing to go to make it real? What are you willing to give up to make it real? But there is a way to do it, should you believe it in enough and want it enough.
Man, that's deep. I like that. Walter Reed is really so I ask this question on every single podcast, and I've done over 120 episodes now, but that's the first time I think I've heard of Walter Reed. That's as a backup, you could also say Times Square, and the message could say, "I'm not." It could be just your photo, or whatever, and it could say, "I'm not Denny Jamazo."
That's a good one. Yeah.
Last two questions. So on November 6th, I published my 100th episode. And what I've been doing since episode 100 is I want to pass the torch between each guest in each episode. What's a quote or a question that I can use in a future episode with someone?
A quote or a question you can use in a future episode with somebody. I would ask a guest, what is your personal mission? Throughout my work with individuals and organizations, it's becoming more and more glaringly obvious how few people know the answer to that question for themselves. In a professional setting, like that mission's given to you. Like you got your mission statement, or you're like in the military, or like this is your mission, and like do you believe in enough to want to like work here? And you're like, yeah, cool. And then like you go do it. I'm talking about your self-declared personal mission. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? Most don't know that. And I think that that's a great indicator, and that's an important place to start. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. If you aim at nothing, you will hit it every single time. And so like, what is that? And if you use that as a beacon or as a target to begin moving towards, well, now all energy proceeds to like, how am I going to do that? Not so much what am I going to do or who am I going to be? It's how. And now we're in problem solving mode. Now we're in action planning. And now we actually get to work and get our hands dirty. So, what is your mission? And I think if you just root that in kind of how we started this conversation, Martin, where like life is finite, life is a blessing, life is a gift. It could end at any given moment. Now, I would argue that a requirement to be living life, which is different than surviving life. And we've all been in those chapters of survival. I've been there many, many times. But for me, a requirement of living is having an identified mission and pursuing that relentlessly.
Mm. Nick, I'm so honored that you joined my show. What can I do for you? How can I best serve you?
Man, I'd say keep doing what you're doing, brother. If I'm being brutally honest, I hadn't heard of you or this podcast until we met, face to face at the conference last year. I'm glad you came up. Sorry, I missed the joke. It was a good one.
Fine. It was loud. It was loud.
Right? Glad you came up, man. Glad that you were able to get on my radar a little bit. I was able to check out some episodes. I'm grateful that you brought Tony, my wife, on. It was a great conversation to have. It was amazing. So I think keep doing what you're doing. You've already impacted me. Starting a podcast in today's world seems like it just kind of happens. Like it's this very like easy lift. Better than I do. It's really hard to do and difficult. And it's one thing to be able to create a platform and upload videos. It's another thing to dedicate yourself to being a skilled podcaster and interviewer, as you clearly have done. So, stay on target, brother. I love what you're doing. Stay the mission. What's that next evolution? How do you continue to scale and grow up and impact more people and get more attention and change more lives? But I think what you're doing is phenomenal. And I'm eager to be able to support you and help you do that in any given way.
Is there anything that you want to put out there, or if people want to, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I think the easiest stop would be at our website. It's machine.co. Machine is MCHN. We do have a leadership development and performance coaching platform called The Forge, which I maintain. So I'm in there multiple times a day. We do live sessions. We do Q&As. There's all kinds of exclusive stuff. And that's blowing up like crazy. It's similar to the Outlier Project, except it's got a little bit more, I'd say, like grit and aggressiveness and more tenacity from myself and our other elite specialists. Those are my coaches. So should you be interested in working alongside me and an amazing growing team, The Forge would be the place for you. And mchn.co is the way to get there.
Yeah, and I'm going to link all that in the show notes. Nick, thank you again, man. This is phenomenal. Like your answers were just they're just very unique and just phenomenal, man. So thank you.
Appreciate that, brother.